The True Crime Society podcast contains adult themes and violence and is not intended for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
If you'd like to skip the intro, please refer to the timestamp listed in the episode description. Thank you.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the True Crime Society podcast with Stephanie and Olivia. Right now it is June 6th, 2024. Weather update. We were both just saying how, like, the weather always seems to be lying, or I feel like they don't know the weather until, like, literally the day of.
Yeah.
Because it was, like, pouring rain and crazy here and thundering, and it said, like, severe storms. Then it was super sunny and just, like, a lovely evening after that. And then you said it was like the opposite, where it said that you're supposed to get rain, but well, I guess it's the same. You're supposed to get rain, but it's sunny.
Yeah, it's getting maybe a little bit cloudier now, but it was sunny this morning. The weather's been pretty off and on here. Like 1st of June here is the first day of winter, so we're into winter now. But like this, we've had so much rain. I don't know if it's. I need to look it up because I always say El or La Nina, whichever one it is, where there's all this rain. We were watching a football match last night and the ground was so wet that anytime someone ran on it, like it would like fly up, all the water would fly up. It's just everything is soaked. So meant to be a ton of rain today. It hasn't arrived yet. Hopefully we'll get through this podcast so you don't have the sound of torrential rain to listen to.
Yeah. So as you all know, I moved into this house a couple of months ago, and I was really excited to like have a yard because growing up at my parents' house, now my sister's house, they had trail cameras set up outside, or just cameras, and my dad loved feeding the wildlife, which I know you're not supposed to do, but we'd always get all this wildlife on the cameras and we loved seeing them. So I was like, oh my God, I can't wait to see what's in my yard. So we set up some cameras outside that are motion activated, and all this time we've gotten literally nothing, like not even a squirrel, maybe an occasional crow. We do have like a stray cat that goes through every now and then that I'm always like, should I feed this cat? Should I make it my pet? Yeah, I think it's someone's cat though that just goes outside. I was like really bummed that I wasn't gonna get anything because I moved to this place with all this wooded area. I was ready to like see some bears or at least like a deer, but nothing until not last night, a night or two ago. The cameras went off and I went and looked at my phone expecting to see one of the cats, and it was a little raccoon, which isn't that exciting because like it's a raccoon.
It's exciting because we don't have them here.
Yeah, for you it's exciting. We saw him. He walked across the driveway, and then he went around the back to our deck where our grill is, and he went up to our little like chair and table set, and he went up on his legs and was like sniffing around on the table, like looking for food. And I was like, oh, rude. He's like gonna go up on the table and chairs. So he was poking around. And he just went on his way, and it reminded me of you with Elmo. Maybe if he starts coming back a lot, he could be Elmo too.
I wish. That would be my little dream for him to come back one day, or one of them to come back, because it probably won't be the same one. But
yeah, and you can just pretend it's Elmo. So yeah, if he keeps coming back, we'll have to think of a name for him and follow his antics like
Roger
Elmo.
the raccoon.
Roger.
Elmo and Roger, that's cute.
Yeah, so which is crazy. Like I don't even see squirrels or anything. Maybe now they're gonna start coming out. That's nicer. Well, it's just hot, but maybe they like that. I always wonder if they smell my cats.
Yeah, I feel like that's why we don't get a lot of animals here, because they can like know the dogs are around.
The dogs.
So yeah, they just stay away.
Yeah, because my cats stay in the window and like we'll leave the windows open at night, so I'm like maybe animals could smell them, and maybe they'll want to come and eat them though.
Hopefully not. That would be not a nice thing to wake up to.
No.
I've got I don't know if this is a dumb story or not. I'll just say it anyway. So one thing that this is just kind of a funny how the world works story. So I was telling my sister-in-law recently I want to buy a treadmill because the weather's been shit. And I'm like, at least that way if I could just jump on the
treadmill so bad.
Treadmill for like half an hour, like I can even do it in my pajamas if I want. I just want to have one, and I feel like it'd be good for the kids too. She's like, I wish you had told me. I just like this. So I've been talking about this for a few months. When I say just, it was like a few months ago that we had this conversation. And she's like, I wish you had told me because I had a treadmill and it was so great, and I bought it on Facebook and I sold it for the same price, and it was so great, but I only sold it because I didn't use it, but you could have just had it. And I was like, oh, it doesn't matter. I'm sure I'll find one. So I've been kind of on and off looking for a treadmill. I'm like, I don't want to spend heaps of money just in case we don't use
I know, they're
it.
so expensive.
They are so expensive. So anyway, yesterday for the first time in a while, I looked on Facebook Marketplace and I messaged my sister-in-law. I'm like, oh, here's this one. What do you think? And she's like, because she was giving me all this advice, like you need to have one that's got a belt this width. So it's like, anyway, so all these things. And she goes, oh, that one looks okay, but maybe this is wrong with it. I'm like, yeah, okay, fair enough. I'll just keep looking. And then like 5 minutes later, she rang me. She's like, oh my God, I was just looking on Facebook and her exact treadmill is back up for sale. The lady who bought it off her is selling it. And I'm like, she's like, it's the exact same one. Like, so I've messaged the lady and I'm like, can I buy this? She's like, yeah, she goes, I've had lots of interest. When can you come and get it? And I'm like, well, my husband can come this afternoon. And then, so I got it for $150 less than my sister-in-law paid for it. The exact same amazing treadmill. So my husband went and picked it up last night and he's like, geez, you've stitched me up. This is enormous. So we've put it in the garage now and it was pouring rain. So we had to put it in there to get it out of the rain, but we have to find a place for it in the house now. But how funny, the exact same treadmill that she's like, I would have given it to you anyway.
And you had to pay for it though.
I know,
still
but I
cheaper
still got
than
it
buying
for
one,
less.
though.
And it was actually a really good price. I think this lady, she's like, I just don't use it. So she just wanted it gone. So how funny that the exact same one. And I like just randomly looked for the first time yesterday in probably a few weeks. Saw one, just thought I'll just look another time. And then my sister-in-law rang me back. It was very funny.
Yeah, I really want to get one too.
The circle of treadmill life.
I'm like too scared to go on Marketplace though, because you just see like the horror stories of people being annoying and stuff.
And even like I found one that looked like a while ago that looked kind of good. And when I started chatting with the lady about it, and I thought, I'm one of these annoying people now, because when I looked it up online, she was selling it for more than you could buy it for brand new.
Oh my God.
So I just ghosted her. But
yeah, they're like expensive though. Like decent ones are like $500.
Yeah. Well, even like decent ones here are like $1,500. So
like good ones here, are like over $1,000.
Yeah. So it is like the one I got is Nordic Track, which is a good brand.
Oh yeah, those are good ones.
Yeah, but like I feel like I got a good deal, so hopefully I'll have to get on it and get using it.
Yeah, I want to get one and put it in the garage too. But, I've got a long list of things to do at this house. And
I know.
I'll get there eventually. And I have a gym membership, but just sometimes you don't feel like going.
No. And like I just feel like sometimes like even if you just got 15 minutes, at least you could jump on there. You don't have to get dressed. If it's raining, you can do it. It just is handy to have, even though it is a big thing that takes up a lot of space. But
yeah. Anyways, another current event, not that those are really, I guess they're current events. Today, a ton of information came out about Rex Heuermann. He was charged with 2 more murders, the murders of Jessica Taylor and Sandra Castilla. Jessica was murdered, I think, in 2003. I'm just going off the top of my head before anyone gets mad. And Sandra was murdered, I think, in like 1992 or 93, so a big span between them. So he was charged with their murders today, but also they put out more information about evidence and things like that. Rex apparently had like this Word document that went into details about his process that he saved on an old hard drive. And it's just like insane. We post about it on Instagram and we'll probably do an episode going through everything in it. It literally just came out today, so we didn't feel prepared to switch it up to that immediately. But like he detailed like things to remember, like the process, like make sure you set this up before, like get a good night's sleep for the hunt.
A whole body prep section and things like remove head and hands and stuff.
Yeah, and like cut off tattoos, just like disgusting, insane things. And then he was like referencing the Mindhunter book that's about serial killers, and just like I can just imagine, and it's all in caps locks, which I've mentioned a few times, but just like so on brand for him to be typing this at his probably desktop computer back in the day. And I think it was like around 2002 that he started this Word document, but just him sitting at his desktop computer like typing away, thinking he's so fucking smart in his musty ass house.
I would love to see like the notes on his phone and stuff as well. Like I can just absolutely imagine this is just some shitty basic Word document that he's kept. Yeah.
Tons of spelling errors.
Like he'd spell heavy Hevey, like just dumb mistakes.
Yeah, and it's just like absolutely insane, disgusting, and it's just like sickening to think what these poor girls went through.
Yep.
and that they cross paths with him, like just an absolute monster, and talks about some of the like torture porn that he was into. Just disgusting. And we were talking about this, not to get too into it since we'll probably do an update episode on it. Because Asa is always hit or miss, where like she filed for divorce, but then she was like still going to court or visiting him, and she was like basically saying like she's gonna wait to hear the evidence.
Well, here's some massive
Like,
evidence.
bitch, here's the evidence.
Yeah. It's I would love to know more about his early life. Like, I wonder if this is a nature versus nurture thing, if he had a fine
Yeah, like,
childhood and he's
why is
just
he
a
like
real
this?
psychopath, or if something happened to make him this way. But he is a complete and utter deranged lunatic. Like, what he's done is so disgusting and despicable and just unbelievable.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, we've been posting about it on our Instagram. The document is on there. It's saved to our highlights if you want to read it. It's like 37 pages. But if you don't feel like doing that, we'll do an episode on it soon and go through it. But we couldn't not mention it because it just came out today. So it's just sickening. And we were both saying, like, there's definitely way more murders that he's committed.
I think he's probably responsible for most, if not all, of the Long Island ones, and I would not be surprised if there's others in other locations that haven't been linked to him yet.
Yeah.
So I don't know if your friends are anything like mine, but every one of them is reading A Court of Thorns and Roses. They're into the fantasy world. Everyone is so into that genre at the moment. If you have finished that book, you're looking for something else, Dipsy's got you. So you can dive into spicy enemies to lovers' tales or embark on an epic romance between a mortal fae and sworn foes. They've got fantasy romance stories perfect for your morning walk, late night, or long bath, which sounds so amazing right now. So Dipsy is an app full of hundreds of short, spicy audio stories. They bring scenarios to life with immersive soundscapes and realistic characters. You can discover stories about second chance romances, adventurous vacation flings, and hot and heavy hookups.
And there's a growing library of fantasy series with werewolves, Greek gods, goddesses, Regency era, historical fiction, and fairy smut to explore the bounds of your pleasure. New content is released every week, so in between listening to your favorite stories again and again, you can always find something new to explore. Dipsy offers a modern approach to romance through high-quality and captivating audio fiction. For listeners of the show, Dipsy is offering an extended 30-day free trial when you go to dipsystories.com/TCS. That's 30 days of full access for free when you go to DIPSEA stories.com/TCS. dipsystories.com/TCS. So we'll get into what we're talking about today. We're going to do another older one today just by chance because I was just browsing on Reddit and I saw this one and I'd never really heard about it, and it's so horrible and it involves teenage girls. And it reminds me of the show Under the Bridge, if people have watched that, because that show's about how a bunch of teen girls got together and beat up and murdered another teen girl. So it made me think of that. It might sound a little familiar to you if you've watched that. But that has nothing to do with this, because the show is actually based on a true story too. So
I'll have to check it out. I haven't watched that one yet.
Yeah, it's good. It was coming out weekly, so now it's all out, so you can binge it at least. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the case of Shanda Sharer. She was 12 years old, and she was tortured and burned to death in Indiana in 1992, and the perpetrators were 4 other teenage girls between the ages of 15 and 17 at the time.
It was a brutal slaying. 12-year-old Shanda Sharer was repeatedly beaten and sodomized for hours.
They knew exactly what they were doing, and they did it over a disgustingly long period of time.
Shanda Sharer's murder by 4 teenage girls made national headlines with its brutality.
The Shanda Sharer murder was a horrifying crime for Madison, Indiana, and I don't think our community will ever forget.
15-year-old Hope Rippey, 3 other girls admitted to torturing 12-year-old Sharer, then burning her alive.
Hope Rippey and Tony Lawrence turned themselves into authorities today.
Sunday, police arrested 16-year-old Melinda Loveless and Lori Tackett and charged them with murder.
So a little bit about Shanda. She was born in Pineville Community Hospital in Kentucky on June 6, 1979. Her parents were Stephen Sharer and Jacqueline Vaught. Her parents would end up divorcing, and her mom would remarry, and the family moved to Louisville. So when they moved to Louisville, Shanda attended St. Paul School, where she enjoyed cheerleading, volleyball, basketball, and softball. Her mother, Jacqueline, ended up divorcing again, and after that, the family moved to New Albany, Indiana in June 1991. After that move, Shanda started school at Hazelwood Middle School, which I feel like sounds like a fake middle school from like a TV show.
It's like a perfect kind of
name. Oh, she goes to
Yeah.
Hazelwood.
Yeah.
But then she eventually transferred to Our Lady of Perpetual Help School, which sounds like a hospital name.
Yeah.
So while Shanda was at Hazelwood Middle School, she met another girl named Amanda Heavrin, who was 14 years old. And at first, she and Amanda didn't get along, and they actually had a fight, and both the girls received detention for the altercation. But while they were in detention, they ended up becoming friends. And then eventually they started writing romantic letters to each other. So they did quite the turnaround.
Yeah.
There's pictures of the letters, or at least one of them. And it's just like a typical letter that looks like every letter a kid wrote at that age. It says, Shanda, I love you, and like the bubble letters that you thought you were so cool for doing as a kid.
It's got like a heart with an arrow through it and like blood dripping off it.
The blood dripping.
Like
I remember doing that. It says, talk to you later with exclamation points, smiley faces. And it says, P.S. Don't worry, I still like you. Do you still like me? Well, love, with love underlined. It says, love ya, Amanda. And then it says the date, I think.
I don't know what that is. 91, 92, 93, but I don't know what that means.
And then it says smooth.
Then it says write back and tell me, because when she asked, do you love or like me? So write back and
I couldn't tell what that meant, the WB. So then there's another student we'll jump to named Melinda Loveless. She was also 14 at the time, and she had apparently also been dating Amanda. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, so much drama for these young girls. But then I think back and I'm like, literally that age is just like all drama. So Melinda was having a troubled time at school, and she'd been in fights and reported that she was struggling with depression. And in March 1991, Melinda came out as a lesbian to her mother. And she carried on her relationship with Amanda that year, but it deteriorated as time went on. Melinda, of course, became jealous of Amanda's blossoming relationship with Shanda. And in October 1991, Amanda took Shanda as her date to the school dance. And when Melinda found out about this, she was probably furious, and she confronted Shanda. So later that month, Amanda and Shanda attended a festival together. When Melinda found out about this, she began to threaten to kill Shanda, which, I mean, probably at that age, most people don't take seriously, being like, oh, I'm going to kill them. But maybe they should have. Mm-hmm. So this is when Shanda's parents arranged for her to transfer to the Catholic school, the one that I said sounds like a hospital, and that was in November 1991. So I guess her parents maybe got wind of some trouble brewing and were like, we're taking you out of this Hazelwood school.
Go somewhere stricter, maybe, but clearly didn't help.
To the hospital school. So on the night of January 10th, 1992, Melinda got together with 3 other perpetrators in the case, the other teen girls. So we'll talk about them quickly just so we get some background on them, because I think it is relevant to the insane behavior that happens. So Melinda, the one that we've been talking about, was born
She's kind of the instigator and the main perpetrator,
the one that had the relationship with Amanda. So she was born in New Albany, Indiana on October 28th, 1975. Her parents are Marjorie and Larry Loveless, and Melinda had 2 older sisters. So this is going to be a lot. Like, her parents,
she had a very messed
the dad
up
mainly.
Yeah.
Just every horrible thing you could think of. So bear with while we go through. So her father, Larry, served during the Vietnam War and was said to be emotionally scarred from that when he returned home. Marjorie, the mother, would later say that he returned a sexual deviant. He would apparently wear the underwear of Marjorie and of his daughters. He also used their makeup, and he had a fascination with seeing Marjorie have sex with other people. After the war, Larry found it hard to keep a job, and he lost one position after he assaulted an African-American man whom Larry accused of sleeping with Marjorie, which is interesting since apparently he enjoyed that. Maybe he was just racist also. Yeah. Wouldn't be surprised, because this guy literally is awful in every other way.
Dirtbag, yeah.
Marjorie also only worked intermittently. Said that Larry was violent and abusive and didn't share any of his income with his family. He would use his money to purchase guns, motorcycles, and cars, but he ended up filing for bankruptcy in 1980. So members of their extended family have said that the Loveless children would often visit their homes hungry because they didn't get enough food at home. Marjorie and Larry would go to bars in Louisville, and Larry would pretend to be a successful doctor or dentist, and he would introduce Marjorie as his girlfriend. The couple would partake in orgies, seemingly at Larry's request, and he would share Marjorie with his friends. During one orgy, Marjorie tried to kill herself, and she would make several suicide attempts over the years. So when Melinda was 9, Larry had Marjorie gang raped, and it's just like such a crazy sentence.
Yeah.
Larry had Marjorie gang raped, and she tried to drown herself after that. She refused to have sex with Larry for a month after that, and he eventually raped her while their daughters overheard the whole thing. In 1986, Marjorie wouldn't let Larry go home with 2 women from the bar, and because of that, he beat her so badly that she was hospitalized, and he was convicted of battery after that assault.
I can't believe it doesn't seem like he has a very long rap sheet for someone who did all these horrific, horrible things. I know he got the battery charge and all that, but there doesn't seem to be that much else on him, which is wild considering.
I feel like back then it was like you just dealt with it as a woman. That's what people thought you should do. And it's just crazy. Like, I remember the first time I read this, I was like, oh my God, that's horrible. And then it's like the next thing, it's like, oh my God, that's horrible. And I was like, when does it end? The list just goes on and on and on and gets worse and worse and worse. Because like there's still more to go through, if you guys were wondering. So it's believed that Larry abused his daughters and other relatives. It was claimed that he fondled Melinda when she was an infant. He also allegedly molested Marjorie's 13-year-old sister. He was also said to have molested a cousin of his daughters named Teddy from the age of 10 to 14. And Melinda's sisters have both said that he molested them as well. But Melinda has never admitted to any molestation by her father, but she did sleep in a bed with him until he abandoned the family when she was 14 years old. In court at a later date, Teddy, that's the cousin that said she was molested, described an incident where Larry tied all of his daughters up in a garage and raped them in succession. When Melinda's older sister Michelle was 7, Larry fired a handgun in her direction. He would also embarrass his children by getting out their underwear and smelling it in front of other family members. It's like, you think you're embarrassing your kids, but like, you're embarrassing your damn self and looking disgusting in front of your family members. So from here, Larry and Marjorie joined the Graceland Baptist Church when Melinda was 5. They apparently stopped drinking and swinging while they were members of the church, and Larry somehow becomes a Baptist preacher, and Marjorie became the school nurse. So here, I feel like we talk a lot lately about horrible preachers, pastors.
Yeah. It's so wild that he can go from, anyway, but like, yeah, just all of a sudden become an upstanding member of the community despite everything that he's ever done.
Yeah. So the church arranged for Melinda to be, clearly this church was not great either.
Yeah.
From the following I'm about to say. The church arranged for Melinda to be taken to a hotel room for a 5-hour exorcism with a 50-year-old man. Larry became a marriage counselor also, because apparently he
was well versed
should
on
be giving advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just unbelievable. While being a marriage counselor, he got the reputation for being too forward with women in the congregation and was even accused of attempting to rape one of them. So clearly that went well for him. And after that incident, Marjorie and Larry left the church and resumed drinking and swinging again. In November 1990, Marjorie caught Larry spying on Melinda and a friend, and she attacked him with a knife. He was hospitalized after he attempted to grab the knife, and Marjorie attempted suicide again after this incident. Larry filed for divorce soon after and moved to Florida. Everyone flees to Florida.
Yeah.
Melinda was said to have been crushed and was devastated when Larry remarried. He would end up severing all contact with her, and Larry died in a car crash in Missouri in 1998. What was he doing in Missouri?
I know, Missouri, Florida, all around the place.
So, yeah. So it seems like Melinda had a horrific childhood, very tumultuous. I couldn't even imagine going through any of that as an adult, never mind as a child, and these are your parents.
Before we get on with the episode, we're going to hear a word from our sponsor, IQ Bar. I know we've spoken about it before, but we love IQ Bar products. At the moment, I am actually loving the IQ Bars so much. Chocolate sea salt is my absolute favorite. I was always starving in the morning. I'd get to work and I'd be like, what am I going to eat? Now I just grab a bar, take one in the car. They are so delicious, so good for you, and just such a great way to start the day.
I usually don't love protein bars, but these ones are delish. The peanut butter one is so good. It tastes just like peanut butter. Shocking, I know. But, sometimes they have like a weird taste to them. But these ones are actually really good. I love grabbing them as like a little quick snack when I'm on my way to work. So then I'm ready to start my day.
Start each day right with IQ Bar's brain and body boosting bars, hydration mixes, and mushroom coffees. The ultimate sampler pack includes all three. You get 7 IQ Bar flavors, 4 IQ Mix flavors, and 4 IQ Joe flavors. And today our listeners get an exclusive offer of 20% off plus free shipping. Just text CRIME to 64,000.
The Ultimate Sampler Pack is a great way to try all the IQ Bar products and flavors, and all IQ Bar products are entirely free from gluten, dairy, soy, GMOs, and artificial sweeteners. IQ Bar makes the #1 brain and body nutrition bar, hydration mix, and instant coffees in the U.S., with over 10,000 5-star reviews and counting.
Refuel smarter with IQ Bar's Ultimate Sampler Pack. That's 7 IQ Bars, 4 IQ Mix sticks, and 4 IQ Joe sticks. And now our special podcast listeners get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus get free shipping. To get your 20% off, just text CRIME to 64,000. Get your discount, text CRIME to 64,000. That's CRIME to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details.
So another one of the perpetrators was Mary Lori Tackett. She goes by Lori. So she was born in Madison, Indiana on October 5th, 1974. Her mother was a fundamentalist Pentecostal Christian, and her father worked in a factory and was convicted of 2 felonies in the 60s. Lori has said that she was molested at least twice as a child, once when she was 5 and once when she was 12. In May 1989, Lori's mother found out that she was getting changed from a dress into jeans once she got to school and attempted to strangle her. Social workers became involved after that incident. After Lori's 15th birthday, she became increasingly rebellious and developed a fascination with the occult. She would attempt to impress her friends by pretending to be possessed by a spirit called Deanna the Vampire. Lori engaged in self-harm. Her parents found out about this and checked her into a hospital. On March 19th, 1991, she was given antidepressants and was released. She was readmitted 2 days later after she and her girlfriend cut their wrists deeply. She was treated and admitted to the psychiatric ward. She was then diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. Lori was discharged from the hospital on April 12th, 1991. She ended up dropping out of high school in September 1991. So Lori and Melinda became friends in November 1991. Now, the third perpetrator is Hope Anna Rippey. She was born June 9th, 1976. Her father was an engineer, and her parents divorced when she was around 8, and she moved with her mother and siblings to Michigan. Her parents would end up getting back together, and they moved back to Indiana in 1987. Hope had known Lori and Tony Lawrence, who's the 4th perpetrator, since childhood, and they became friends again. Hope also began to self-harm at age 15. And then the 4th perpetrator is Tony Lawrence. She was born on February 14th, 1976, and her father worked as a Boilermaker. Tony was abused by a relative at age 8, and she was raped by a teenage boy when she was 14. She became promiscuous, began to self-harm, and attempted suicide in 8th grade. So all these girls had traumatic childhoods, very troubled, and were going through a lot.
There also is not as much information out there for Hope and Tony, which we'll get into, but basically the 2 kind of main perpetrators were Melinda and Lori, and then Hope and Tony they were obviously involved, we're not denying that, but Melinda and Lori kind of orchestrated.
They kind of just tagged along.
Yeah, they orchestrated the whole and began the whole thing.
Yeah, and this is part of the reason why it reminds me of Under the Bridge, because it was a similar thing where a couple of them were much more involved, while the others were kind of just followers because they were friends, and they all had very troubled childhoods and were living in group homes for various reasons. So it's kind of just a cycle of abuse type things.
Yeah.
So back to the timeline, the story. On the night of January 10th, 1992, Tony, Hope, and Lori drove in Lori's car to Melinda's home. So Hope and Tony hadn't met Melinda up until this night. They were just friends with Lori. So this was also their first time meeting Melinda. When they got to the house, Melinda showed them a knife, and she said she was going to use it to scare Shanda. Melinda told the girls that she disliked Shanda for being a copycat and for stealing her girlfriend. Lori later said that she knew there was a plan to kill Shanda, so she just seemed to be lying to the other girls.
Yeah.
But apparently there was always a plan that she discussed with Lori. So the 4 girls left and drove to Jeffersonville, where Shanda stayed with her father on weekends. They stopped at a McDonald's to ask for directions to the house. Melinda told Hope and Tony to go to the door when they arrived and to say that they were friends of Amanda's. Shanda answered the door, and the 2 girls asked for Shanda. Shanda replied that she was Shanda. They then asked her to come with them to see Amanda, who was waiting for them at the Witch's Castle, or Mistletoe Falls. And that location was a isolated, ruined house on a hill, so sounds sketchy.
Yeah.
Also, like, just imagine these 2 strangers coming to your door being like, hey, come with us. Like,
No, come on, let's a 12-year-old. Like, my daughter is 12. Like, when I was doing these notes, I'm like, I just cannot believe. Like, if someone came to the door and was that to my daughter, I'd be like, no, absolutely not. Like,
especially when it's not like your friends or your neighbors. Like, I know back growing up during this time, like, it was normal, like, go to your little neighbor friend's house and be like, come outside and play. But these were girls she'd never met before, didn't live like on their road or something. So it was still weird. Shanda didn't want to go and told them that she already planned to attend a party. She'll then come back around midnight a few hours later. Just come back later.
I know, 12-year-old, come back at midnight. Just
yeah.
See.
So the 4 girls left and attended a punk rock show while they waited. Tony and Hope were said to have lost interest in the music, and they engaged in sexual activities with 2 boys in Lori's car. They ended up leaving again and heading back to Shanda's, and Melinda said during the drive that she couldn't wait to kill Shanda, but also said that she just wanted to use the knife to frighten her. They got to Shanda's home around 12:30 a.m., and Lori and Hope went to the front door to collect her again, and Melinda hid under a blanket in the back seat of the car with the knife.
So by this time, Shanda's father and stepmother had gone to bed, and she'd been allowed to stay up to watch TV. When they went to the door, it said that she was reluctant to go with them, but she eventually agreed. When she got into the car, Hope began asking her questions about her relationship with Amanda. Melinda then emerged from the blanket and put the knife to Shanda's throat, and she began interrogating and harassing her about her relationship with Amanda. By the time they got to Witch's Castle, Shanda was sobbing. By the time they got to Witch's Castle, Shanda was sobbing. The girls took her inside and bound her arms and her legs with rope. Melinda taunted Shanda and said that she would cut her hair off, and she also took her jewelry and gave it to the other girls. Lori got a shirt from the car and lit it on fire to scare Shanda, but they feared then that fire would be seen by, cars driving by, so they left again with Shanda.
On January 10th and 11th, I was one of 4 girls that was involved in the death of Shanda Sharer. I didn't know Melinda. I'd only met her once before. That night she was agitated and she didn't want Shanda around Amanda, and that's what the whole thing was about. She was gonna beat her up. It was gonna be Melinda teaching Shanda a lesson to leave Amanda alone. That night I was the one that was driving us to Shanda's house. Tony and I went up to Shanda's door to ask her if she wanted to come with us. When Melinda came out of the back seat is when she had the knife with her, and she started threatening Shanda. We drove to the Witch's Castle, and we all went up into the little rock shelter. Melinda was more taunting her, and I was being a bully too. I was laughing at her and making remarks about the situation. I bet you're gonna leave Amanda alone now. Laurie wanted to leave because there were cars driving by. We drove right past where Laurie lives to a wooded area, and that's where Melinda and Shanda fought. Laurie was goading Melinda on and encouraging her anger. Laurie just wanted to see a fight. I mean, it just was out of control.
When they got back to the car, Shanda begged the girls to take her home. They became lost, and because obviously this is pre-cell phones and pre-GPS and things like that. So they became lost and had to stop at a gas station to ask for directions. They covered Shanda with a blanket at this point, I guess, so no one would see her. This happened a few times. They would drive, they'd get lost, they would stop at a gas station, they would ask for directions. So they finally ended up near some woods near Laurie's home in Madison. Hope and Tony have said at this point they became frightened, and they stayed in the car while Melinda and Laurie made Shanda get out of the car and strip down to her underwear. Melinda beat Shanda with her fists, and she repeatedly slammed Shanda's face into her own knee, and this cut Shanda's mouth with her own braces. So basically Shanda's head into her own knee. So that would have been so painful. Melinda tried to cut Shanda's throat, but the knife was too dull. Hope got out of the car and held her down while Melinda and Laurie took turns stabbing her in the chest. They then strangled her with a rope until she was unconscious. They put her into the trunk of the car, and Melinda and Laurie told the other girls that Shanda was dead. They then drove to Laurie's home, went inside to grab sodas and clean themselves up. Soon, Shanda started screaming from inside the trunk. Laurie went out with a paring knife and stabbed her multiple times. She went back inside and she was covered in blood.
It's also crazy they just went inside for a quick soda.
And this would have been early, probably 2-3 a.m. It's just crazy. And her parents are inside the house. It's wild.
Yeah.
I drove us to Laurie's house. Tony and I got out, and Melinda and Laurie left. They didn't tell us what they were gonna do, so we just went in Laurie's room. And then her dad came in at one point and asked where his daughter was, and we said that she was with Melinda. I never told him that Shanda was with them. I didn't say anything about her being with us at all. I was scared to say anything because I didn't know what was happening. I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to stop it. I know that it's selfish and I know that it's wrong, but I didn't want to make them angry with us. I just didn't know. I don't know exactly what time it was when they left, but it was daytime when they came back. So it was hours. We just laid there and went to sleep. When Melinda and Laurie came back to the house, they told us that they had killed Shanda. When Shanda was in the trunk, she had blood on her face, on her body, her hair. I mean, she was tortured. She was beaten badly. We kind of figured that she was dead. It just was decided that we were gonna burn her body to get rid of it.
So Hope and Tony stayed at the house while Melinda and Laurie went driving. Shanda continued to cry and make gurgling noises, so Laurie stopped driving and they opened up the trunk. When they did that, Shanda sat up and she was covered in blood. Her eyes had rolled back in her head and she was unable to speak. Laurie beat her with a tire iron until she fell silent. Laurie has later said that she felt Shanda's head caving in and she told Melinda to smell it. The girls sexually assaulted Shanda with the tire iron as well. They would keep driving around for hours, but Shanda was still alive. They would stop and they would continue to assault her with the tire iron.
I can't believe how much this poor girl lived through, too.
It's just, and for me, as I said, my daughter is this age. It just is sickening. It's too much.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Melinda and Laurie went back to Laurie's house just before dawn. They woke up the other two girls and Hope asked about Shanda. Laurie laughed and told her about the torture. The girls were so loud that it woke up Laurie's mother. She was angry that they were out so late, but she also offered to cook them breakfast. Laurie said no, as she needed to drive all her friends home. They all left and she drove them to a burn pile where they opened the trunk to view Shanda. Tony refused to look at her. Hope sprayed Shanda with Windex and said, "You're not looking so hot now, are you?" They then drove to a gas station and put some gas in the car. They also bought a 2-litre Pepsi. Laurie tipped the drink out and they filled the bottle with gasoline. They then drove to an area where they stopped the car. Laurie and Hope wrapped Shanda in a blanket. She was still alive, and by this point she was she was only able to whisper "mummy" by that point. They carried her to a nearby field. Hope poured gasoline on Shanda and they set her on fire while she was still alive.
Sickening.
Melinda wasn't convinced that Shanda died in the first fire, so they went over to her body a few minutes after and they poured the rest of the gasoline on her.
We drove to the gas station. We purchased a 2-liter of Coke. The Coke was poured out and gasoline was put in the 2-liter. We drove out into the country. We all thought that it was nowhere. We were stupid. We didn't think there would be anything there for anybody to find. We were dumb. It's not like we knew what we were doing. Laurie opened the trunk and Shanda was in there. And Laurie kept yelling at us to help her. And Tony was like, "I'm not getting back out of the car." And I said I didn't want to help her. I was like, "I'm not going to help you." And Laurie yelled at me to get the 2-liter out. So I grabbed the 2-liter and I went to hand it to her. And she was like, "No, just pour it on her." And I was like, "No, I'm not going to do that." And she said, "Just do it. Just pour it on her." So I did. I was the first person that poured the gasoline on Shanda. And I don't know who lit the fire. It was either Laurie or Melinda. And then they came and got in a car and we drove away. And then we did drive back because Melinda was worried that the fire would go out. So Melinda got out and poured the rest of the gasoline on her and threw the bottle, and then got back in the car and we left.
The girls then went to McDonald's for breakfast at 9:30 a.m. They apparently laughed and said that Shanda's burned body looked like the sausages that they were eating.
That's literally just psychopath behavior.
Yeah,
Like,
it's just insane. Tony called a friend at this time and told the friend about the murder. So they just had no plan either. Like, they were out there telling people, stopping at McDonald's.
Yeah.
They just had no real plan. I guess they just were so cocky and thought they could get away with it.
I just had like no sense of reality to even think they could do this, murder someone, take someone's life, and just be like so silly about it and like laugh about it, to not think that there's like serious consequences for murdering someone and thinking like they're not going to get caught, and that they're ruining so many people's lives, including their own. So as we all know, I love my cats. I'm always talking about them. Peep is actually here right next to me. She's very excited for this one because Smalls is cat food. I think I've talked about this before too, is that my cats are so picky with food. They will only eat one type of food, and that's why I was really hesitant to change up their food. But I hated knowing that the food that they had been eating wasn't the healthiest and was probably full of like preservatives and ingredients that aren't even like real actual things. So I was really excited to work with Smalls. Peep is obsessed. Like, she's a small cat and she doesn't really eat a lot, but I've actually never seen her eat more than when we started using Smalls, and I'm not even just saying that. She will not get away from the food dish.
It sounds amazing, and that's why you've got to try Smalls. Are you still feeding your cat kibbles? Smalls cat food is protein-packed recipes made with preservative-free ingredients that you'd find in your fridge, and it's delivered right to your door. That's why veterinarians.org rates Smalls 10 out of 10 for ingredient quality.
So Peep, her favorite flavor is smooth bird. She really loves any of the bird ones. She's obsessed. I've never seen her eat more. I have to like get her away from the food bowl so she doesn't eat it all, and so my other cat can have some too. So besides Peep seeming to really love it, I just feel so much better knowing that I'm feeding my cat real actual food that like I would eat, and not burnt kibble or just processed chemicals that probably aren't that great for them.
So now is the time to make the switch to Smalls. Head to smalls.com/TCS and use promo code TCS at checkout for 50% off your first order plus free shipping. That's the best offer you'll find, but you have to use our code TCS for 50% off your first order. One last time, that's promo code TCS for 50% off your first order plus free shipping. So Laurie dropped Hope and Tony off to their homes. Melinda called Amanda, so that's the one who was also in the relationship with Shanda, and told her about the murder. Another friend of Melinda's named Crystal went to Melinda's home that day. Melinda told her about the murder. So this is 3 separate other people they've told by the day of the murder. The 3 girls, who were Crystal, Laurie, and Melinda, went to pick up Amanda, and they told her what they had done. Amanda didn't believe them, so they opened up the trunk and they showed her the blood. Amanda was horrified and demanded to be taken home. When they got to Amanda's house, Melinda kissed Amanda and said that she loved her, and she begged Amanda not to tell anyone about the murder. Amanda promised that she wouldn't. So later in the morning of January 11th, 1992, 2 brothers were driving when they noticed a body on the side of the road. They first thought it was a mannequin, but realized quickly that it was a body, and so they left, again before cell phones, and they called police at 10:55 a.m.
Her body was drawn up in what's called the pugilistic posture, which is typical of persons that die in fire. They draw up like a boxer. Based on the investigation, after they got Shanda's out of the trunk and laid her down here, Hope Rippey poured the gas, and Lori Tackett set her on fire.
Shanda's father, Stephen, noticed that Shanda was not around when he woke up on January 11. He called Shanda's mother at around 1:45 to tell her what was going on, and they filed a missing person report with the Clark County Sheriff. At 8:20 p.m., still the same day, Hope and Tony went to the Jefferson County Sheriff with their parents. They were hysterical and gave rambling statements. They identified the victim of the crime as Shanda, and they gave descriptions of Laurie and Melinda. So you have to remember too, those girls had never met Shanda before. I don't even know if they knew her last name, but they knew her first name. They, I guess by that point they had remorse. They were freaking out about what they'd done, and they had this limited information that they could give to the police. So police then figured out that the body that was found on the side of the road was Shanda's after they matched the details to her missing person report, and she was identified via dental records. So Melinda and Laurie were arrested the following day, January 12th. The prosecution immediately said that they intended to try both Melinda and Laurie as adults, but all 4 girls ended up being charged as adults. On April 22, 1992, Tony took a plea deal, and Melinda and Laurie took plea deals in September of that year. These deals were done in order for the girls to avoid the death penalty. So Melinda and Laurie were sentenced to 60 years in prison. Laurie was released on January 11th, 2018, which is 26 years to the actual day after the murder, and she served probation for 1 year. Melinda was released the next year in September 2019. Hope was sentenced to 60 years with 10 years suspended for mitigating circumstances plus 10 years of medium supervision probation. The judge would end up reducing her sentence to 35 years after she appealed, and she was released on April 28, 2006 after serving 14 years. She remained on supervised parole for 5 years until April 2011. Tony cooperated with police and she was allowed to plead guilty to 1 count of criminal confinement. She was sentenced to a max of 20 years and she ended up being released on December 14th, 2000 after she served 9 years. She was on parole until December 2002. I am in shock that especially Melinda and Laurie were allowed out of prison.
I thought they didn't even get that bad of sentences.
No. Like when I started doing the notes, I'm like, surely they're all still in prison. No, all out.
No.
All of them are out. It's wild. Like, and I understand they were young and maybe there's a chance they could be
but
rehabilitated.
It was like such a fucked up crime.
Oh my gosh, so fucked up. Like 26 years and 27 years they served, Laurie and Melinda, 26 and 27 years.
Yeah, I feel like today they would have gotten more time.
Yeah. So as kind of a end note, Shanda's father, Stephen, died from alcoholism in 2005 at the age of 53. In an interview with Shanda's mother, Jacqueline, on the investigation discovery series Deadly Woman, she said that Stephen was so distraught by his daughter's murder that he, quote, did everything he could to kill himself besides put a gun to his head. And she said that he drank himself to death. That man definitely died from a broken heart. So in 2012, Jacqueline, Shanda's mother, made her first contact with Melinda since the trials. Jacqueline donated a dog named Angel in Shanda's name to Melinda to train for the Indiana Canine Assistance Network, which is abbreviated to ICANN, through Project to Heal, which provides service dogs to people with disabilities. Melinda trained dogs for the program for several years. Jacqueline has said that she got criticism over the decision, but she defended it, saying it's my choice to make. Shanda's my child. If you don't let good things come from bad things, nothing gets better. And I know what my child would want. My child would want this. Melinda also spoke about the contact that she had with Jacqueline. Yeah, so nice of her. Melinda said she helped me to heal, forgive, and grow, whether she wanted that or not. I don't know who she's forgiving, maybe her, maybe Larry, but she wanted me to heal, forgive, and grow, whether she wanted that or not. She did a good thing. I would thank her. I couldn't thank her enough. Angel is in good hands. I'm doing it for Shanda, and I'm doing it for her. So since the women have been out, some of them have been given interviews. There's a few Dr. Phil interviews that we might put in a few clips where they've spoken about the crime. Laurie said in one interview, I didn't know Shanda at all. I didn't go into that evening knowing anything was going to happen, wanting anything to happen. It was peer pressure. That's all it was. It spiraled out of control way too fast. It's something that should never have happened. And Laurie also spoke on Dr. Phil and she gave her opinion about why people kill. She said, my opinion is that they kill to feel superior or high on the victim's fear and they're thirsty for the spill of blood.
Those thoughts were so deep of her.
They're so deep of her. Like, I feel like the motivation in this case for me, it seems like it was jealousy. I do agree, probably peer pressure, wanting to fit in with Melinda, who seems like she was kind of the bad girl about school. Like,
well, also they could have been afraid of her too at some point.
Yeah.
Like, if she's willing to do all this, what's she going to do to me?
As Shanda's mother, like, I guess, I haven't been in that situation and I hope never to be, but eventually maybe just for your own, you can't live your life forever. I agree with maybe that's why she gave the dog to Melinda to train as a way to kind of move forward, something good to come out of the bad.
I could see how that could help her heal.
I still am in shock though that all of them were out and those sentences they received, I feel were horrific. They should have absolutely. If I was Shanda's parents, I would be devastated over those sentences.
Yeah, it's horrible.
2 of them are out of jail today.
How do you feel about that?
I don't feel good about that. I have tried so hard to deal with Shanda's death with a little bit of dignity. because I'm Shanda's voice now. There's nobody left to speak for her. And the only thing that I've ever asked is for these girls to serve their sentence. And the only one that has is Lori Tackett. She's never once asked for an appeal or asked to get out early. But the others did everything. I mean, Melinda just recently exhausted all her appeals. Hope Rippey went back and back and back until she actually got a judge to completely resentence her, and she shaved 15 years off of her sentence. There was only one thing they could do to show their remorse, and they couldn't even do that. So I don't feel good about that at all.
I do think it makes you just think with Melinda especially, and Lori, I guess, that had the really horrible childhoods. Like, I feel like she probably just living through that her whole life and seeing all that. Do you think it's normal to an extent? Do you not realize how bad,
messed up
murder and all of that is, because it's something she lived through all the time, and it seems like her dad really never got in trouble and just went on living his life? So I feel like her perception of good and bad, or right and wrong, and what's acceptable and is not, is skewed. Like, it's her dad seemed to, whenever he needed more control or wanted power over the mom, he would do horrible things to her. So with Melinda being so jealous of Shanda and wanting to like teach her a lesson, it's like that's what she learned from her dad, it seems.
I feel like too, and this is also not an excuse, like they were teenagers, so I could kind of maybe see, not understand, but I could see how they would get carried away. Like Melinda's got this plot to kill Shanda, and they're just like, oh, like, and maybe, but then in saying that too, this went on for hours. They drove around with her. They stopped repeatedly to torture her with the tire iron. Like at any point they could have not killed her, but it just went on for so long that they absolutely should have realized what the outcome was going to be. And Lori and Melinda especially both went along with it and carried out the plan to the very end.
Yeah, it's insane. Like, it's just really a crazy, crazy story.
I do feel like, and I'm not, this is a generalization, I know, because I know sometimes it does happen, but I feel like there are way less cases like this day, just because it's so much harder for anyone to believe they could get away with it due to CCTV, phone tracking. Like, whereas these kids didn't give a shit. They were just driving around. They stopped and asked for directions while they're in the middle of this crime. You know, it's just so unbelievable. And it did happen a while ago now, but I just feel like it doesn't seem to, thankfully, you know, obviously there's these random crimes that we talk about in other episodes as too, but there is no way that they could have gotten away with this if they did it today, which I know they didn't end up getting away with it anyway, but I feel like it's just because they told everyone. If they, you know, maybe could have taken longer for them to get caught if they didn't tell everyone.
Yeah.
It didn't involve Hope and Tony.
Society now is just different in general. Not that this was like eons ago, but most parents aren't letting their 12, 14-year-olds out in the middle of the night all night. Like, obviously kids sneak out, but this was like their parents didn't care and just like let them go out, it seems like. And people are much more on top of their kids nowadays.
If my 15-year-old got home at dawn, I would be furious. I would be like, I'll just make you breakfast. Like, you know,
so I just
different time.
Times are different too. Just was kind of like the perfect storm of messed up.
Amanda has spoken, you know, fairly regularly to the media. So she was the one who was in kind of the relationship with both Melinda and Shanda. So there's a few clips of her which we've put on the blog if you want to check them out. But I just can't even imagine. Like, it does sound like Amanda really had no idea what was going to happen. And then imagine just, hey, this is what we've done.
Yeah, I'm sure she feels horrible and has like some type of guilt. Not that she should, but I can't imagine not feeling bad.
No, it's just a crazy, crazy story. Such a dumb, ridiculous crime that they ever thought. Like, I really feel like they just didn't think. They just thought, we're just going to do this. It's going to be cool. It's going to be, you know, edgy. And then got away with it for 12 hours after the crime, essentially.
The part, like, the juxtaposition between what actually happened, where the girls, after the murder, they went back to whoever's house and they were like giggling too loud, so the mom woke up and was like, oh, I'll make you all breakfast. And then thinking about, like, as a kid, like, you did that, you'd have sleepovers, you'd be too loud and like wake up your parents and they'd be mad, and then the next day they'd make you breakfast. But it's not after you murdered someone, so it's just weird to see like them do something so heinous and horrible but then still be acting like teen girls in the end.
Yeah. Just an unbelievable story. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a crazy story. I had never really heard of it before. Had you?
I had heard of it. Like, I absolutely didn't know the details. Like, I kind of was a little
Seen it,
bit
like, in
familiar that it
passing?
was a murder. I didn't realize the horrendousness of what they did. And I don't think I even realized that it was these 4 teenage girls that did it. I thought, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just kind of knew basic details.
Yeah, so definitely a crazy one, but that is it for that story. If you want to read more about it and see the sources and everything we use, they'll be on our blog at truecrimesocietyblog.com. And you can follow us on Instagram at True Crime Society. We're always posting there about different cases. Like I said, all the Rex Heuermann stuff that came out today will be on there. All of that. If you want to follow our personal accounts and see what we're up to, mine is StephSum_, Olivia's TCS Olivia. We're on Patreon now as well. We do all the episodes ad free, and we do weekly bonus episodes, so a whole nother episode a week. And we do earlier releases of these episodes like a day earlier. Plus, we have some little community chats on there, all that. So if you want some more content from us, you can check that out. Otherwise, all the usual stuff. Share the podcast with your friends or on Instagram and leave us nice comments, nice reviews, all that. Definitely share the podcast. That's the biggest help to us. And that is it. So thank you guys for listening and stay safe. Peace out.
See ya.